Okay, so this is going to sound like one of those you had to be there stories, but I swear every detail is true. I never thought I'd be the guy who gets caught in the middle of some low-key romantic chaos just because my brother invited a friend to crash for a night. But here we are. Let me set the scene. It was a random Friday night, not much going on. My brother Jake had just gotten back from college for the weekend, and our parents were out of town. Jake has this tight-knit group of friends he likes to bring over sometimes, and usually I'm pretty chill with it. Except this time, his friend Liam was staying over because he missed the last bus home or something. I figured, no big deal, he'd just crash on the couch. But then, late that night, I'm half awake because my room's right next to the living room, and I hear Liam wandering around. Turns out, the couch was somehow taken. Jake's other friend had already claimed it, and Liam casually asks if he can crash in my room. Now, I don't know if I was still half asleep or just didn't want to make it awkward, but I said, sure man, just the floor or whatever. He pauses, looks around like he's debating, then drops, actually, your bed's way comfier. Mind if I take it? I blinked. Did I just hear right? My bed? The one I've slept in every night since I was a kid. The one I'm currently sitting on, trying to wrap my head around the fact that this kinda cute, effortlessly cool guy who's Jake's friend just asked to take it, and I'm supposed to sleep somewhere else now? I'm not gonna lie, part of me was weirdly flattered, but the other part was silently screaming, dude, what do you mean your bed? This isn't a hotel. I mean, I barely know this guy. Jake's talked about him a couple times. Liam's that guy who's smart, good at guitar, kinda mysterious in this chill way, and apparently way better at making an entrance than I give him credit for. So here I am, standing awkwardly in my doorway, trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go, while Liam makes himself at home like he's been invited to stay for a week, not just one night. And yes, he chose my bed. That's when I realized, okay, this isn't going to be a normal night. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was coming next. I ended up grabbing one of those old camping mats from the closet. Yeah, the one Mom got for family trips, and that's been gathering dust for years, and plopped it down in the corner of my room. Not exactly 5-star accommodations, but it was better than the floor, I guess. Liam just gave me this amused look and said, thanks man, you're way nicer than you look. I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an insult, so I just laughed nervously and shrugged it off. Honestly, it was kind of one of those moments where everything feels a little surreal, like you're watching it happen but also inside the mess at the same time. After he settled in my bed, I grabbed my phone to text Jake, hoping for a bit of backup, or at least some sympathy. No reply. Typical. I lay down on the mat, trying to make the best of it, but I couldn't help stealing glances at Liam. He looked different in my room, somehow. Less like some cool college guy, and more real, like someone I could actually talk to without worrying if I'd say the wrong thing or mess it up. His hair was tousled, the way it always was, and he had this half smile on his face like he knew something I didn't. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what. So I just asked, so how do you know Jake? He turned his head slightly and said, we've been friends since freshman year. Actually, I think I met him the first day on campus. He helped me find the cafeteria, of all places. That made me laugh. Jake is totally the guy who'd do that, but Liam's tone was softer now, like he was sharing something personal. He's pretty great, huh? Yeah, Liam said, his voice low. He is. But it's weird, you know. You hang out with someone for years, but you don't really get to know all the sides of them. Like, I don't think I've ever really met your brother's family before. I realized I'd never asked much about Jake's friends or introduced them properly before. Mostly because I kept things separate. My life, my brother's life. But this felt different. What about you? I said, pushing myself up a little on the mat. What's your story? Liam paused, then sat up in my bed, stretching his arms over his head. Not much, really. Just your average college kid trying to figure stuff out. Music's my thing, though. I play guitar in a band. We're not famous or anything, but it's fun. I raised an eyebrow. Music, huh? That explains the cool vibe. He chuckled. Yeah, well, it's better than the guy who just wants to binge-watch Netflix and avoid social interaction. I grinned. Hey, sometimes that's exactly what I want. For a moment, the room was quiet except for the hum of the AC. Then Liam looked at me with this kind of honest curiosity that made me feel weirdly exposed. You don't really talk much, do you? I mean, you and Jake seem close, but you're kind of quiet. I shrugged. I guess I'm just used to doing my own thing. Plus, Jake's always been the loud one. I'm more low-key. Liam nodded, like he understood completely. Sometimes being low-key is underrated. We both laughed softly. It felt like the tension was easing, but that weird electricity wasn't going away. I kept catching myself noticing the way the light hit his face, or how his eyes seemed kind of intense in the dark. Then, just as I was about to say something, anything, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Jake had finally texted back. "Bro, you good? Liam took your bed?" Lol. I sighed, typing back, "Yeah, I'm on a camping mat." Living the dream. Liam snorted. "That's brutal." We both laughed again, and for the first time that night, I felt like this unexpected situation wasn't so bad. Maybe because Liam wasn't just some random guy crashing at my place. He was someone I wanted to get to know, even if it meant surrendering my bed for a night. As I settled back down on the mat, I realized I wasn't really tired anymore, and honestly, I was kind of hoping this night wouldn't end too soon. I lay there on my camping mat, staring at the ceiling, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about tonight. Maybe it was Liam, or maybe it was just the fact that my room suddenly felt less like my own. But there was definitely something in the air, a kind of quiet tension that wasn't awkward exactly, but charged, like the calm before a storm. After a few minutes of silence, Liam shifted beside me on the bed, and I could hear the bed creak softly. Then he said, almost casually, "You ever get tired of just playing it safe? Like sticking to what you know?" I blinked. That was an unexpectedly deep question for two people sharing a room for the first time. I tossed the question around in my head for a bit before answering honestly. "Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I guess I'm not exactly the adventurous type, but I don't know how to change that without making things weird." He laughed, a low, easy sound. "Weird's not always bad." There was a pause, and then he added, "I think sometimes we tell ourselves we're protecting ourselves by keeping things simple. But maybe it's just fear, you know?" I thought about that. It made sense. I'd always kept my distance from anything that felt too complicated, but maybe that just meant I was missing out on something real. "So, what about you?" I asked. "You said you play guitar in a band. Is that your way of not playing it safe?" Liam smiled, and for the first time I noticed how his eyes crinkled at the corners. "Yeah, I guess. Being up on stage, putting yourself out there, that's definitely not safe. But it's where I feel most alive." I wanted to say more, but the words got caught in my throat. Instead, I just shifted to sit up on my mat, looking over at him. The way the lamplight hit his face made his features seem softer, more approachable than I expected. This was the point where most people would probably say something stupid, or try to make a joke to break the mood. But I didn't want to ruin the moment. I wanted to see where it could go. Liam caught my gaze and held it for a few seconds before looking away, a faint blush on his cheeks. "You're different, you know. Not in a bad way. Just, you don't remind me of anyone I know." That caught me off guard. I wasn't used to people saying that to me, especially not someone like Liam. "Different how?" I asked, genuinely curious. He shrugged. "I don't know. You're quiet, but not distant. You listen, but you don't judge. It's refreshing." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the stuffy room or the late hour. "Thanks, Liam. That means a lot." For the next few minutes, we just sat there in comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't need filling with pointless chatter. I thought about how strange it was that a night that started with me losing my bed had turned into something unexpectedly meaningful. Then Liam broke the silence. "Hey, you want to hear some music? I have a few songs on my phone." I nodded, interested. He pulled out his phone, grabbed his earbuds, and handed me one. We shared the earbuds, sitting close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his arm. The first song was slow, acoustic, with raw emotion in the voice. I found myself getting lost in the lyrics, feeling like Liam was telling a story that didn't quite match the tough exterior he put out. When the song ended, I was surprised at how touched I felt. That was Really good, I said quietly. He grinned. Thanks. I've been working on that one for a while. It's about trying to figure yourself out, I guess. I looked at him, suddenly feeling brave. Or maybe just reckless. I think I get that. Liam's smile softened, and he nudged me gently with his shoulder. Yeah? Maybe we're both trying to figure it out. There was something in his eyes that made my heart skip, and I realized I wanted to know more. About him, about Jake, about whatever this was starting to feel like between us. Just then, I heard a creak from the hallway, the front door probably closing, which meant the house was definitely empty now. I looked back at Liam and saw that he was watching me, waiting. The question hanging between us wasn't spoken out loud, but it was there. What happens now? I didn't have an answer, but I did know one thing for sure. I wasn't ready to let this night end just yet. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of that unspoken question hanging between us like a thick fog. The room suddenly felt smaller, like every sound. My breathing, his slight shifts on the bed, was amplified. I could feel Liam's eyes on me, steady and expectant, and I couldn't deny the strange pull I felt toward him. It was like the whole night had been building up to this quiet moment, and now there was no turning back. Wanna play something? I blurted out, trying to break the tension. Like, I don't know, video games or something? Liam laughed softly, the kind of laugh that makes you feel like you just heard a secret joke. Sure, I'm down, he said, sitting up and pulling his phone away from me. The problem was, I don't really play video games anymore. I used to back in middle school, but now it felt like a relic of the past. Still, I grabbed my old handheld console from my desk drawer. It was a beat-up little thing, but it worked, and plopped down on the floor, motioning for Liam to join me. He dropped down beside me, close enough that our legs brushed, and I felt a jolt shoot through my chest. I tried to focus on the game, but every time I glanced over, Liam was watching me with that same intense look. Like he was trying to see past whatever front I was putting up. So what's your thing? I asked, trying to keep the convo casual. Besides guitar, I mean. He took a breath, then said, I like sketching. Not great at it, but it's how I unwind. I raised an eyebrow. Really? I didn't peg you for the artsy type. He shrugged, a little embarrassed. Yeah, well, there's more to people than first impressions, right? I smiled. True. I guess that's something I'm still figuring out. For the next hour or so, we played that dumb game, laughing when we messed up, trash-talking each other just enough to feel competitive, but not mean. It was easy, comfortable. Somehow, I forgot that Liam was a brother's friend. He felt more like someone I'd known forever. At one point, Liam reached over to nudge me after I lost a round. His fingers brushed my arm, and my skin prickled. I looked up, and he caught my gaze again. Hey, he said quietly. Thanks for letting me stay. I know it's kind of weird. I shook my head. No, it's fine. Honestly, it's been nice. He smiled, that soft smile that made my chest tighten. Good, because I'm not just crashing here. I kind of want to stick around. My heart did a weird little flip. Was he serious? Stick around how? He shrugged, still smiling like he was daring me to say no. I don't know. Hang out, talk, maybe more. If you're okay with that. I felt like time slowed down. My mind raced, trying to catch up with what my heart was already shouting. I wanted that. More than I'd admit out loud. I'm okay with that, I finally said, and it came out steadier than I expected. Liam's smile broadened, and he leaned back, looking relaxed and at ease in a way I hadn't seen before. Cool, I'm glad. We spent the rest of the night talking about everything and nothing. Music, family, the kind of dumb stuff you share when there's no one else around. At some point, I forgot about my camping mat and just sat cross-legged on the floor, feeling more connected to Liam than I ever thought I would, to someone who'd just crashed at my place. When it got late enough that the quiet started to feel like an invitation to finally sleep, Liam said, "You're sure you don't want the bed back?" I shook my head. Nah, you can keep it. I don't mind. He grinned like a kid who just won a bet. You're a good guy, you know that? I laughed, but it felt real. I'd never had someone say that to me so sincerely before. As I rolled out the camping mat and settled in, I caught Liam staring at me again. This time, there wasn't any hesitation. He reached out, gently brushing a stray strand of hair from my forehead. "Good night," he whispered. "Good night," I said, and for once, I didn't feel alone. Not really. Lying there, listening to the steady sound of his breathing, I realized that this night, awkward beginnings and all, was exactly what I needed. Maybe it was the start of something new, something real. And honestly, I couldn't wait to see where it went. I wasn't sure how long I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the quiet hum of the house settle in around me. Liam's breathing was steady, calm, and it was kind of soothing, like it grounded me in a way I didn't expect. Usually, nights like this, I'd spend scrolling through my phone or listening to music on headphones, trying to drown out all the thoughts racing in my head. But this time, I just lay there, letting the silence stretch between us. At some point, I heard the soft scrape of Liam shifting on the bed, and then he spoke, barely above a whisper. "Hey, are you awake?" I turned my head toward the sound, and even though it was dark, I could tell he was looking at me. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause then. "Do you ever get scared? Like, about opening up to people?" That caught me off guard. It wasn't the usual casual conversation you have while sharing a room. There was something vulnerable in his voice, almost like he was laying down a piece of himself for me to see. "Yeah," I admitted. More than I want to admit. I guess I've always been afraid that if I show too much, people won't stick around. Liam sighed, and I could almost feel the weight of it through the space between us. Same. It's like you build walls to protect yourself, but sometimes those walls just end up keeping you lonely instead. I wanted to say something to comfort him, but honestly, I was feeling the same way. So instead I just said, "Maybe it's worth taking the risk, opening those walls a little." There was a quiet moment, and I heard Liam's breath hitch just slightly. Then, "Yeah, maybe." For a while, we stayed in that quiet, connected somehow, without needing to speak. It felt honest and raw in a way that surprised me more than I expected. Eventually, sleep claimed me, but not before I felt the faint brush of Liam's hand resting lightly on my arm. It was a small thing, but it meant everything. The next morning hit with that awkward, slow feeling of real life creeping back in. I woke up on my camping mat, muscles a little stiff, and glanced over at Liam still curled up in my bed, looking peaceful, far from the tooly, confident guy he'd been the night before. I sat up and stretched, trying not to wake him, but just as I was about to get up, he opened one eye and smirked. "Morning, dude. How's the floor treating you?" I laughed. "Like a 5-star hotel." He laughed back, then swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood up. "Thanks again for letting me crash here. Seriously, it means a lot." "Don't mention it," I said, suddenly feeling like I wanted to say more but not sure what. We moved into the kitchen where Jake was already making coffee and giving me a sideways glance that screamed, "You're in trouble." "Morning," I mumbled. Jake grinned. "So, Liam took your bed, huh?" I rolled my eyes. "Yeah, and I got the floor." Jake laughed. Classic. Liam came in behind Jake, carrying his guitar case. He caught my eye and gave me a small, knowing smile. After breakfast, Liam and Jake went out to catch up, leaving me alone with a sudden jumble of thoughts. The night before kept playing over and over in my mind. I wasn't sure what it all meant, but I knew I wanted to find out. Later that day, Jake called me over and said, "Hey, Liam wants to hang out again tonight." I felt my stomach twist in that familiar way, a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Yeah, cool." Jake smirked. "You're blushing." I shot him a look, but couldn't deny I was looking forward to it. That night, Liam showed up with his guitar slung over his shoulder and a grin that made my heart skip. We ended up on my porch, just talking and laughing like we'd known each other forever. When he played guitar, the way his fingers moved over the strings, I felt something shift inside me, something I couldn't explain but didn't want to ignore. At one point, Liam caught my hand and held it for a moment longer than necessary. "Hey," he said softly, "I'm glad I chose your bed. I squeezed his hand back, smiling. Me too. There was no grand gesture, no fireworks, just two people figuring things out in that quiet, messy way that real life goes. And honestly, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. After that night on the porch, things between Liam and me started shifting in ways I hadn't expected, but secretly wanted. It wasn't like some dramatic, we're officially together announcement. No grand proclamations or awkward confessions. It was more subtle, like a slow dance where neither of us wanted to step on the other's toes, but both wanted to keep moving forward. The next few days, Jake was back at college, so it was just Liam and me hanging out. Liam stayed over a couple more nights, mostly because it was easier than figuring out bus schedules, he said, though I think there was more to it than that. We fell into this weird routine that felt oddly comfortable. Liam would practice guitar in my room, his fingers deftly strumming chords, and I'd be sprawled on my bed or at my desk, half listening, half lost in my own thoughts. Sometimes we'd talk about music, sometimes about school, or just random stuff like movies and food and dumb memories from childhood. The kind of conversations that make you realize you don't know someone as well as you thought. One evening, we were sitting cross-legged on the floor, sharing a pizza that I definitely didn't earn from playing video games, but Liam insisted on ordering anyway. So Liam said between bites, "What's your dream?" Like, if you could do anything, no limits. I thought about it while chewing. Honestly, I don't know. I've never really thought about it that way. Come on, he pressed, nudging me with his shoulder. There's gotta be something. I shrugged, then felt a little embarrassed. Maybe just figuring myself out, getting comfortable being me. That sounds lame, but it's true. Liam nodded like he understood more than I said out loud. Not lame at all. That's the hardest thing sometimes. There was a pause, and then he looked at me with those intense eyes that always made me feel like he was seeing something beneath the surface. You know, he said quietly, "You're not like anyone I've met before. You're real." I felt heat rush to my cheeks. Thanks, Liam. That means a lot. He smiled, and for a moment, it felt like the whole world had shrunk down to just the two of us, sitting on the floor with pizza and quiet honesty. Later that week, I caught him playing one of his original songs on his guitar. The lyrics were raw and honest, touching on themes of loneliness and hope, things I could relate to even if I didn't say it out loud. When he finished, I was silent for a moment because I wasn't sure how to respond without sounding awkward. Finally, I said, "That was really good. Like, really good." He shrugged, looking modest. Thanks. It's easier to say things through a song sometimes. That's when I realized how much I wanted to know more about him. The real Liam, not just the guy who was Jake's friend or the casual visitor who took over my bed. One night, after a movie marathon that turned into us falling asleep on the couch together, Liam leaned his head against my shoulder, and I felt my heart race. It was the kind of closeness that makes you aware of every little touch, every breath. "I'm glad I stayed over that night," he murmured. "Me too." I whispered back, not sure if I was speaking about that night or everything that came after. The next day, I found myself texting Jake, asking more about Liam. Not the usual stuff, but the things that made him who he was. Jake seemed amused, but happy to share, telling me stories about their college days, the music, the late-night talks, and the struggles Liam kept hidden from most people. It made me realize how lucky I was to be on the outside of that circle, getting a glimpse into something genuine. One afternoon, Liam and I went for a walk in the park near my house. It was chilly, and we both had our hands shoved deep into our jacket pockets. As we walked, we talked about future plans, the uncertainty of college life, and what we wanted from tomorrow. At one point, Liam stopped and looked at me, eyes serious. "Can I be honest with you?" "Always," I said. "I'm scared," he admitted. Scared that this, whatever it is between us, won't last, that I'll mess it up, or that it's just a stupid crush. I was quiet for a moment before I reached out and took his hand. The way our fingers laced together felt natural, like we'd been doing it forever. "Liam," I said, "I'm scared too. But maybe that's what makes it worth it." He smiled, relief flooding his face. We stood there, hand in hand, not needing to say anything more. That night, as Liam stayed over again, lying next to me in my bed, I realized something important. Life might be unpredictable, messy, and scary sometimes, but moments like this, real, raw, and full of quiet hope, are what make it all worthwhile. And for once, I was ready to take the risk. Those nights with Liam felt like a slow unfolding, a quiet discovery neither of us rushed. We weren't rushing labels or grand declarations. We were just being, sharing space, stories, and those little moments that quietly build something real. One evening, a couple of weeks after he first took over my bed, we sat on my porch again. The sky was a soft shade of blue-gray, and the air carried that cool edge that only early spring can bring. Liam strummed his guitar softly, the notes drifting in the fading light. I watched him, feeling a calm settle over me that I hadn't expected. Without looking up, he said, "You know, I never thought crashing at your place would turn into this." I smiled, my heart warm. Me neither, but I'm glad it did. He set the guitar down and turned to face me. "You've changed how I see a lot of things. Made me want to be braver, to stop hiding." I reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "You don't have to hide with me." His eyes met mine, steady and open. "I don't want to." We sat there in silence for a moment, just letting everything settle. The awkwardness that could have been was replaced by something honest and simple: connection. Later, when Liam packed up to head home, we lingered at the door. Neither of us wanted to say goodbye. I felt this quiet hope that this wasn't the end of our story, just the start. "Think you'll crash here again?" I asked, half joking. He grinned. "Only if you promise to keep the bed warm." I laughed. "Deal." As he walked away down the street, I stood on the porch and breathed in the night air, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. Maybe it was the way Liam's presence had chipped away at my walls, or maybe it was just the simple truth that sometimes the most unexpected nights bring the most unforgettable moments. Whatever it was, I knew I was ready to be a little braver too. Not just for Liam, but for myself. And that felt like the best kind of beginning.